Hi, welcome to Nella's Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today I got a very special guest, Miss Amy Hedtke, who is running for school board, Waxahachie ISD School Board, Place 1. How are you doing, ma'am?
It's a rainy day today, but absolutely doing great. Thank you.
I wanted to have you on, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that you always make yourself available. I'm sorry that it was kind of late in the game, but we got you right before early voting, so
Sure.
hopefully we'll get this all on and everything good. Um, so there might be people who don't know you. I mean, you are world renowned, but there might be people who don't know you. So can you go ahead and kind of give a bio about yourself?
I've been in the Red Oak, Ellis County, Waxahachie area since 2006. Um, 5 kids, got involved in a lot of stuff in the community. I was on the Red Oak Parks and Rec board for a while, and the library board and 4-H club manager, and went through a divorce. So we're back in Ellis County. I'm in Waxahachie. Got 2 kids in the Red Oak High School. So we've been following the bonds out there. They've had 3 school bonds on their ballot that they have not been able to get passed, mostly because they keep jacking up the taxes and lying to the voters. And people see that and they don't like it. And bonds are about trust. And so when you've got people that just don't trust you, you can't get stuff passed. So
And we're definitely going to
on the
cover that.
bonds and me, we're talking about trust.
We're definitely going to cover the bond because,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody could see behind her. There's just a little sign there that says something about bonds, but we're definitely going to cover that, Amy. So, you have a background in this county. You've been Red Oak, now you Waxahachie, and you're running for the school board. So I wanted to know, what is the proper role of the school board in the lives of the people of Waxahachie, the parents and the kids? What is the proper role?
School board is a taxing entity. And they are an elected voice for the people. So we're looking at how is the school funded? How much is it funded? And what can the community afford to fund? As well as dealing with advocacy and grievances between the superintendent and the teachers and everything else. So we've got a lot on their plate, but it's pretty limited as to what we actually do. School board, like I said, taxing entity, legal entity. And people don't realize that. Everyone's like, there shouldn't be any politics in school board. It's about the kids. And I'm like, not really. The superintendent is the one handling most of the kid stuff, and the school board is the one handling the dealing with the public and the taxpayers part and adopting tax rates in the budget.
And how important is it to be transparent in your eyes? If you were elected to be a board member, what would be what would be your thoughts, and how would you compose yourself when it came to transparency?
Well, we absolutely need more transparency. We finally have our meetings streamed. We finally have, agenda packets posted on Board Book and online. But they just did an entire LRPC round of meetings that cost the district $50,000. And that's just the contract, just to start to facilitate the meeting. And they refused to open it to the public. They didn't stream it. They didn't allow people to even come in and observe. Nothing. And so that's we need more transparency. And if you notice, they have to list the required disclaimer about the tax rate impact at the bottom of every page on their website. And then they finally added a but section. Well, we raised the taxes, but this is why we had to do that. And it wasn't really a raise in the taxes. It was this, so we didn't do that. I'm like, dude, you raised the taxes. Just own it. Just own it, because people hate hearing the spin. They hate hearing you spin it.
And they do. People can call. That's why I present information. You, the viewer, can see the candidates, and that way you decide. I don't decide for you. You listen to them, and if you decide they're the ones you want to vote for, you vote for them. For me, it's just get out and vote. Make sure you vote. Voting is abysmal here. So, if did I ask you what made you want to put yourself in this meat grinder of Ellis County politics and run for board?
Well, I learned a long time ago that if nobody steps up to challenge an incumbent and nobody else files, then they're declared elected without a single vote being cast. And I'm like, that's not really good for a community either. So I've made it a point to always try to file. and make sure people have a choice on the ballot. If I hadn't filed, you'd only have place 2 up for election, really, and place 1 would already be declared elected. Yeah. So, filing, making sure there's an election for that place, and being a candidate helps give you, number one, a little bit more access to the public, and being on the board, being an elected official, gives you access to a lot more information that the general public does not have and is not aware of. So when people are like, you just don't understand, I'm like, you don't think so? Okay.
Right. Now, what would you like? What are your thoughts on being a good steward to the people's money?
Right now you've got, at least in Waxahachie, you got general and specific. So taxpayers are funding this stuff whether they want to or not, and giving them more information and accountability is important. The bonds as written right now don't really do that. You got a whole bunch of stuff piled in Prop 1 and a bunch of vague facility language in the rest of them. And part of accountability is be specific. At least Red Oak has started to kind of move towards specificity in their bond. And then part of the other thing is making sure that you're spending their money wisely. Part of good stewardship is understanding that almost half your tax base, half your families in Waxahachie can't afford this stuff. It's like they're not, when you say we have to bus kids over to the stadium for practice, and then other people are like, I can barely afford food, and you want me to be mad that you're busing kids for athletics. It's a huge disconnect with what the people at the door are saying and thinking. And we need to be cognizant of that. And so far, Waxahachie has not. They've already lost 2 of their last 3 bonds after this huge high school.
Yeah, there is definitely, and I've talked with other people that have come on, and I asked them about transparency, because if you're going to ask, and this is the relationship where relationship comes in. If you're going to ask me or the general public to pay more in taxes, up their mortgage, cut out something in their life, whatever. If you're going to ask them for that, there has to be trust. There has to be an accountability factor. There has to be a trust between the people and the taxing entity that you're going to do the right thing. So yeah, transparency. That's why I asked you about transparency, because that is a major issue. Now I wanted to ask you, if you were elected, right now there's issues with teachers staying and keep retention of teachers going, leaving the profession. If you were elected as a board member, what are some of the things you'd like to look at to retain teachers?
Well, what does a bare bones budget look like for Waxahachie ISD? We hear a lot about how the schools aren't fully funded, but schools are stereotypically, and it's the punchline of every joke, of how much schools are funding that's not even required by the state. And teachers are the baseline of what we need to be funding. So if you have to fund teachers, you have to cut your other areas first to make sure those are funded. And that's not happening. I would like to at least see, I want to see, what does a bare bones budget for Waxahachie look like? What does the state require that the school district offer? How much does that cost? And how much could you pay teachers with that budget? I want to see it.
Yeah, a bare bones budget. Now, one of the things that like MISD came up with was an adjusted schedule, because there have been talks of 410 and 410s, or 4 days, 10 hours, and then having 3 days weekends. What are your thoughts on that for the teachers?
I'd like to see more teacher input on that. Right now there are a lot of plans, and this kind of goes back to, what do we know as regular residents versus what do we know as elected officials? And the amount of information out there is pretty crazy as far as how much is out there. But you've got over 1,000 school districts in Texas that are successfully implementing all kinds of schedules, year-round schedules, 4-day schedules, all kinds of things. And yeah, we need to take a look at that. And teachers, I'm going to tell you right now, teachers have to be part of the, how do we help our taxpayers advocates. If the community can't afford you, then you're going to get hurt here. And so it's in the teacher's best interest to help keep our taxes low. And we need more teachers advocating for that too.
So let's go into that, those issues. One of them, and we're going to do taxes, and then we'll do bond budget kind of thing. Actually, budget and then bond. So taxes. There's major structural issues in taxes. You probably know about this more than I do. I know that they've been talking about changing the way that they do taxes in the state capitol. There's been conversations about property taxes, but it's an issue. And the largest taxing entity on your mortgage would be the school district. So whatever rate the school district comes in, that's going to be the major chunk of your bill, along with secondly, the city, the thing. And I say this for people who don't understand it. And I saw some people commenting the other day when they got their bill about that. So people are suffering. Some people are getting booted out their homes. Some people are low income. You had mentioned that. So I want to know, where does Amy Hedtke stand on taxes? What can the people expect if you are elected on how you will deal and vote on taxes?
I came into the political stuff with the Ron Paul crowd, and Dr. No, I'm a no vote on pretty much everything, but there's more to this than just voting no. And it's a matter of helping to research and find solutions and bring things to the table that people don't want to consider. And those questions need to be asked. The solutions need to be offered. Nobody's talking about capital improvement funds. These things need to be on the table. They need to be pursued. And yeah, I'm going to be a no vote for pretty much any tax increase. I'll be a yes vote for every single donation to the school. But we need more accountability here and more research and bringing this stuff to the table. And I was kind of shocked at that board meeting where Sylvia read that stuff to the board, and there was like no response whatsoever. And I know that they can't ask a bunch of questions and they can't respond to a lot of other things, but they can address matters of fact. And there wasn't even I'd like to talk with you after this. Please catch me outside. And that was a big deal for a lot of people too. So
there was no cash me outside, huh? Well, I would definitely, I am a big supporter of civility in the politics of Ellis County. But you know what? There also has to be truth in everything. When you're dealing with government, there has to be truth. Sometimes facts and truth can get can
not
hurt
very
people.
Civil, huh?
Yeah, it can get people not very civil, and that sucks. So budget, every year, obviously they're going through budget talks right now. Everybody's kind of doing budget workshops, and I plan on trying to cover them. But there's a lot of things going on in the budget. When you see the budget, if you are elected and you see the budget and you're going through the budget process, what can the people expect from you when dealing with the budget?
They can expect me to make a lot of hard propositions of cuts, and I love rich people. I love our billionaires, but we are not dealing with a free market here. And when half of your community is making way less than what our Waxahachie staff are making, the staff needs to realize that there's going to need to be some cuts in just basic 6-figure salaries. People can't afford that. They can't afford to pay a 6-figure salary and your perks and your benefits and try to feed their families at the same time. And we need an understanding staff that can deal with that. And so that's going to be one of those things. Yeah, staff is going to be an issue, and it's going to be your higher number staff, higher budget staffs. And then you've got a lot of these departments that are, athletics is a big one. I'm sorry. It has turned into a bread and circus kind of environment, and people are angry about that. And it needs to be reflected in the budget that we can't afford all of this and still pay teachers a living salary. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at places. And again, I want to know what's mandated by the state and what's not. If you're funding stuff that's not mandated by the state, don't whine when the state doesn't fund everything that you want to put forward in your budget.
Yeah. I mean, and these budgets are are huge, and they're always, it's always a contentious thing.
And I
But
gotta add, I'm not talking about abolishing every single thing, but you don't need an indoor practice field to play football. You don't need UIL to play football. You don't need a lot of the stuff that they're doing, a lot of these huge expensive uniform expenses to enjoy a team sport.
I
There's
was
a
gonna,
lot more that goes on.
and I definitely want to kind of play devil's advocate here, because there's, you know, whenever you get to talking online, somebody will inevitably come on and say you hate kids, or that you know, you want to completely abolish anything to do
Right.
with any extracurricular activities, that you hate CTE. So I wanted you to kind of address that, because it's a lot easier to say somebody hates this and hates that than to kind of hear them out. And this is where you get to be heard out.
Sure. And you know, a lot of it is we're not against the thing, we're against the way the thing is funded. You know, there used to be a lot of community sports that were handled outside the school system, and that's really where it needs to go. UIL is not mandated by the state. TASB is not mandated by the state. There's a lot of ways to do these things that don't require huge, crazy budgets, just to provide the experience. These experiences are beneficial to kids, but they're still beneficial even at a lower funded level. So we need to really dig into that and figure out a way to offer extracurriculars without draining the taxpayer dry.
How about CTE?
Same thing. Same thing. You know, how much is required to be offered by the state, and how much can the community really afford? And
Okay.
there should really be more community town hall type of meetings about this all year long, where, you know, it's not a formal board meeting where they only have 2 minutes to talk about the entire school district, but some informal back and forth where voices can be heard and documented, and some discussion had outside of the board.
Yeah. And you know, since we're kind of on the budget, before I move on to the bond, I wanted to ask you, that's another expense, and something that's been talked about as of late throughout the United States, was these associations that the districts are involved in, and one of them is TASB. Now, you know, the people who want, you know, to not fund that or not pay for that have said that TASB has taken a political stance on things, and because they don't want to be part of that. So can you kind of just run down your thoughts on TASB and the way you would vote if you were elected?
I would absolutely vote to remove from TASB. I mean, the one of the things that I have noticed is how TASB really does kind of take over the school boards, and it's not just an assistance to the schools. They're setting policies. They are setting all kinds of legislative priorities, and it's like, just in the bond part, you've got TASB that helps set up a lot of your crony vendor contracts. They help you set up how to pass a bond. They train you how to pick your yes pack people by putting them on the committees and training them with all this information. And then they help you work on these informational campaigns, and they hook you up with all the right people, like Maze Media in Red Oak, Maze Media, you know, we help pass bonds, but we're just talking about informational campaigns, right? And then once the bonds are passed, TASB has the Lone Star Investment Pool, which benefits from all these bond credit agreements. It's just this huge incestuous cycle, and it's all basically just sucking off the taxpayer. And we need an organization that's not set up like that to be assisting school districts.
And many people may not know that. You guys are always welcome to check that out, and
Yeah.
you know, check out what she has to say about that. But the bond. Now, you know, I've known you for years, and I know how you've been with bonds, and where you
Yeah.
talk about bonds, and I want to go through kind of the details of WISD bond. I actually got the thing I'm going to pull up here in
Good.
just a second, but let's see, let me get that up real quick, and let's see. So I got that up real quick, and we'll go through that. But you know, before I get into this, um, why do you hate kids? Why, don't you want to fund teachers? Why are you so radical on these bonds? I want to, those are things that I see online. Those are things that have been shared. So I want you to kind of speak on that in general, and then we'll go deep into the bonds.
Sure. Well, tax hikes hurt kids right in their own homes. And whether that's the yearly 20% tax hike that Waxahachie is throwing at people every year, or the city tax hikes that people are throwing at these families, people just can't afford this. We've got to find a different way to handle this stuff. And sometimes the best way to get to a different way to handle it is to keep voting down these things until a change happens fundamentally at the state level. But yeah, I am morally opposed to the whole idea of bonds and taxes and taking money from your neighbor by force, because these bonds are not about building a school. They are about the power to levy and cause to be collected taxes without limit as to rate or amount. And that's unacceptable.
How do you fund these projects that have to happen in these schools, like new schools and all the stuff that goes with that? How do you fund that without bonds? I mean, what do you do?
How do private schools and universities and megachurches fund their huge buildings and programs?
Okay. Now, is there no? And I asked you because these questions I'm asking you is questions that
Is
I
what you're
see
hearing.
online. That's
Right.
what these are the attacks that people
Sure.
are levying against you. So I want to put it out there that way you can answer it, because this is only fair. This is being fair.
And school districts in specific, they can set up a capital improvement fund. You have Series 600 funds. People can donate to those funds. It's a tax deductible donation to a school, because not every tax deductible donation has to be a 501c3. But a lot of people just don't do this. Why? I have no idea why.
Right.
I mean, I can only guess, but I don't even want to think about the guessing part. So, I mean, the options are out there, but they're not utilized.
Right. It's I don't know the legalities of a school using their funds, because
A school
I don't know.
cannot use their own funds to put into a Series 600 type of thing unless you've got a very specific situation in your legal situation with the state. HEB-ISD did something similar. They're in that sweet spot where they were able to do that. But most districts are not in that spot. And so it would have to be a community-driven thing, a truly community-driven thing, not a district-driven thing.
That everybody would have to get involved in it. Definitely. And it's something that, you want to do anyway, because you're asking for the taxpayer money.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, I went ahead and popped this up on the screen. I wanted to get you to kind of break it down, what you understand from it. Sorry, I'm having some technical issues. Let me make sure SCAR changes. Okay, so what I have up here is the ISD site bond presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And on here it says Proposition A, that's 192,284. And it talks about establishing 2 schools, a new STEAM academy, expansions at current schools, and then a land for future sites. Now, Dr. Hollingsworth was talking about growth and some of the things that are going on and thinking into the future, and then a STEAM academy and these 2 elementaries being needed where they're being put. So I want you to kind of speak on Prop A. Prop A, why is Prop A, what's wrong with Prop A?
Well, to see what's wrong with Prop A, you have to actually look at the proposition that the voters are going to be authorizing. And that's in the bond order. Because what we're seeing on the screen here is not what voters are voting on.
Talk to me about that.
Okay, so a bond is a legal action. So, and it includes a bond contract, a contract with the voters, and that is set up in the bond order. And right on the Waxahachie ISD website, you can find the notice of election, the bond order.
Right.
And so I would encourage you to scroll down past the presentations and towards the bottom there on their Bond 2023 site. At the very end is this order for bond election.
This one?
That's it. Certificate of order. And you can scroll down and find Proposition A.
Whereas, there's a whole bunch of whereas.
Yep. There. Wait, you just scrolled past it. Boom.
Okay. Is it like right here?
Yeah.
Waxahachie ISD Proposal A. Okay.
That is one sentence. Proposition A is one sentence, and it asks two questions. Shall the board basically go into debt by issuing bonds for those purposes? And two, shall the board levy and cause to be assessed taxes without limit as to rate or amount, and to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds? So you've got for the purpose of constructing, renovating, equipping school facilities consisting of Wylamon Steam, Neighborhood Elementary 10, Neighborhood Elementary 11, Finley Junior High, Howard Junior High, and Hancock Building, and the purchase of land for school buildings. So compared to the presentation that you saw, that the list matches pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the presentation doesn't address the second part of Proposition A.
Okay. Is that here? Is this one?
Yep. And shall the Board of Trustees be authorized to levy and pledge and cause to be assessed and collected annual ad valorem taxes on all taxable property in the district sufficient without limit as to rate or amount to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds?
Okay.
That's Proposition A.
Wow. So that is the actual legal language, and I wanted you guys to
that is what a yes vote authorizes. You're voting for or against that language right there.
So the language, what people who have come on and talked about this said about that language is that is a requirement from the state. It's not a big deal. It's just it has to be put on, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be raised. And
it's required by the state precisely because it is a very big deal. Mm-hmm. Every single bond order in the state of Texas has this language on it, and they're not requiring this for frivolity. They need this stuff, and this is a very serious authorization. And I mean, I don't know about you. If I went in to buy a car and the guy trying to sell me the car and I ask him about something on the contract, and he says, "Oh, don't worry about that. You don't need to worry about that. It's just required for us to put it in there." Hello?
Yeah.
We don't need the shady used car salesman stuff going on. And this is part of transparency and truth. And you can say that the state requires it because this is a serious authorization. You start dismissing that and people are going, wait a minute. And when the district and the Yes Pack turn this into who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? I mean, hello.
Yeah. So this one right here, this second one, this is for Prop B. And then it says, kind of the independent school district authorized to issue bonds, series aggregate principal of $322 million for the purpose of constructing, renovating, and equipping high school number 2. This is on the presentation that is on the WISD. It says, this is for, this meets what they're saying on the slide.
Yes.
And then
and we know that they want to build a comparable high school. So whatever they do to high school number 1, they want to repeat in high school number 2.
Okay. And then it goes into that same language that Ms. Hedtke was reading at the end, where it pledged the taxes and stuff. And then the next bond, Prop C, goes into the same thing. It says what they're asking for, and then again the levy, the taxes, etc.
Yeah, and look at number C, or letter C, Proposition C, and it says for the purpose of constructing, renovating, and equipping school facilities. Period. Not period, comma, but that's it. That's it. That can be for anything, any existing school facilities.
So that's just, they could take the cash, and as long as it's used for obviously in the schools.
And so they have their presentation that talks about what they want to use that money for. But if it's not written in here, it's not, their presentation is not legally binding. This is your contract. And if you've ever bought a house And you're telling the realtor, well, can I have, that shelf over there that's not attached to the wall? And they say, oh yeah, absolutely, you can have that. The owner said you can have whatever you want. But if it's not written into that contract and it disappears, what's your legal recourse? You have none.
Yeah, and it's these legal languages are definitely something that should be looked at, because you are putting a contract with the for these taxes and
Yeah.
for the amount of bond issue debt that's
And
putting on.
something else to keep in mind is that these questions are not asking, are you willing to donate your own property taxes? So when people say this doesn't apply if you're 65, yes, it does. If you are 65, are you ready to authorize the imposition of these taxes on everybody around you? It's not about how it affects you. It's about what you're willing to authorize.
So they talk about on these bonds, they talk about these buildings of schools and the needs that they're going to have supposedly with growth, and the demographers saying the growth that is coming. So you talked about how we could fund these. You don't like the bond. What are we going to do with all these kids showing up, with the school getting overcrowded, with needing another school because of growth? How do we plan that out, Amy? What can we do on that?
If these bond packages fail, and they may very well pass, I mean, the Yes crowd has already raised over $50,000 just to send out their mailers and their signs and advocate for a yes vote. This could pass. If it fails, I'm going to ask that the district set up immediately a series of public meetings and town halls and get some feedback from residents about what they would consider authorizing and where the district needs to be cutting the budget. And I can tell you, it's like I told the Red Oak superintendent the same thing. I'm not going to support a bond, but I can tell you what you need to make it harder for us to oppose it. And you've got to slash your budget. You've got to lower the taxes. Take a voluntary pay cut and show people, lead by example, that you're at least willing to tighten your own belt. And that's not happening. But that needs to happen this summer. The next time to call for a bond is in August. So that's a very tight deadline to really sit down and craft something. But they've already lost, like I said, they've already lost 2 of the last 3 bond elections, and we already told them all this stuff. And have they been doing it? No. How serious are they about actually getting to a point where the community can afford this kind of bond?
Okay.
How serious are they?
One of the other things that are said is that there's going to have to be portables added, and portables have their inherent problems too, and that's going to be taken out of M&O, and M&O does fund a lot of teachers, so that might be an issue. And then the what's going to be put on there is those portables, like I was saying, and that's they have their issues, and they have security issues, and there's things that are brought up when it comes to these portables. Without this bond, supposedly that's going to happen. Can you speak on that?
Sure. I mean, portables are an approved structure by the TEA. It would have been nice if they had built actual classroom space where the indoor practice fields are. It would have been nice if they had prioritized classroom space in every school instead of having half of the school be extracurriculars. And they want to repeat those same mistakes with these next schools. And we need a commitment to designs that prioritize classroom space. Portables, they're not a security issue, unfortunately. I hate to say this, but every school shooting is happening in the main buildings. That's it. And when you want to harden schools, you start with hardening the teachers in the classrooms, and you give them the option to carry. None of the school districts that have been targeted have been in districts that allow staff to carry. They've resource officers, ISD police, all of those guys have been targeted because they're identifiable and they're carrying. When the shooters cannot track who has a gun, they seek an easier target.
Right.
And there's over 50% of the districts in Texas that have adopted either the Guardian or the Marshall program.
Is that something that you would vote on?
Absolutely. absolutely the right to defend yourself. And I don't want to, I hate to say that, would the teacher in Uvalde trapped in that classroom have liked to have a gun on her to defend her children? Do teachers want to have to carry? Absolutely not. Most people do not want to have to carry. But are you ready to defend yourself and your kids? Most of your teachers are absolutely willing to do that. And even the ones in the last presentation I saw about this, and it was back in like 2015, about 30% of the teachers in the school district, not this school district, but another district that was talking about this at a town hall, about 30% of the teachers were ready to carry. And the ones that didn't want to carry were supportive of the program. And only a few were really opposed to even having this. Teachers are carrying. Most are not, but this kind of thing doesn't take most people carrying. It just takes the big sign outside your school district saying, take a guess at who's carrying.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Right. And it definitely is definitely something that can be very discouraging if they know they're going to be met with gunfire back.
And I got to add one more thing about portables. Portables work in districts across the nation, across the world, and they're really only about as bad as the character of the people who are using them. Whoa. Anybody can teach effectively in a portable if they're an effective teacher.
Oh, okay. So, kind of the going into the some of the social issues that arise, obviously CRT is one of them that's been around throughout the years that they've been discussing. And what some people say, well, it's not being taught in schools, it's illegal, etc. Some people say that sure, CRT itself, the college level class is not being taught, but everything about it is creeping into the schools. What are your thoughts on CRT?
This is, I kind of refer to this as Schrodinger's CRT. It's either we're teaching it in the schools and we shouldn't be, or it's a college level class and we're not teaching it in the schools, but we should be, and so it's really interesting to see the discussion about that. State Board of Education is the one that decides most of that stuff. So it's one of those things that, let's talk about the curriculum. Let's take a look at it.
Yeah. And that's definitely something that, like Evelyn Brooks, who is our
State Board of
Education, Miss Evelyn Brooks, I plan on having her on soon, kind of give an update. But unfortunately, I have run out of time. So I wanted to, I wanted to have you on and kind of, I like to have all candidates on if possible. Sure. So you can kind of talk to the people directly. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to give you the mic and let you talk directly to the parents and the people of Waxahachie.
All right. Well, we've got a Facebook group up. It's okay to vote no Waxahachie. And it's a group. You're welcome to come comment on it. The only rule we have is we're not allowing yes posts, but you can feel free to kick in down in the comments. We need a change. We need a lot of change. We need some serious changes at the local level. We can't count on the state to provide anything. And we have to hold our electeds locally accountable to the tax hikes that they are imposing and the budget that they are proposing and the spending that they are authorizing. And we need some serious no, and we need more accountability. We need more specificity. So I'd like to see all these packages voted down, send them back to the drawing board. Let's insist on some public meetings and get some serious input, not just a survey monkey that goes out after these things, but real discussion. And 90% of the people around you are not going to vote in this May election. Please go get them to the polls. We're going to be doing good to have 5 to 7% turnout, maybe 10% if we're lucky. People are not seeing what you're seeing, and we need a change there too.
It's horrible. It's the reason why I do my show, to try to inform people and, get out to the polls. There's a lot of people who died for that right. I mean, get out there. I mean,
that's what we've got on our, where is it? Right here.
Yeah.
Fighting tax increases since 1776.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, elections are a lot easier than another 1776. Just saying.
Prison, and I'm sorry that I lost my train of thought, but guys, get out there and vote. It's abysmal, the voting, and if you're not going to participate in your government, you're going to get the government that not going to get
You
the government
deserve.
that's responsive. You're going to get the government you deserve if you're not going to get in there. Amy, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate that, and good luck in your run, and see you soon.
And you know what? We should probably add vote early. I didn't write it in, but that starts Monday, April 24th to May 2nd.
Get out there and vote, folks. Get out there and vote. You take care, Amy. I'll stick around after the show, please.